Hey guys, it's Godbars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 400th episode of my series, where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So while I've recently managed to accrue a number of 2000s classics that I'm excited to share for this set, I have to admit that by far the one I've been the most excited to get to is the classic 2000 debut I'm discussing today, that of course being Zion I's Mind Over Matter. To make a long story short, it was definitely a bit of a hassle getting this record, and I've had some pretty bad luck when it comes to getting these albums on Discogs a good month or two before they get reissued. But at the end of the day, it was completely worth it, because even though I personally feel like 2000 is a somewhat underrated year, in terms of quality hip-hop releases, there were still very few artists taking such an advanced, forward-thinking approach to the craft. This Bay Area duo consisted of the insanely talented MC Baba Zumbi, who tragically passed away a few years ago, and DJ Amped Live, who acted as the main mastermind behind the group's innovative, funky, and futuristic production. And while they were technically a trio for a period of time, K Genius, another DJ who was the temporary third member, would end up leaving the group after their amazing debut here, meaning that the vast majority of the Zion I output has just come from Zumbi and Amp Live. From my research, it seems like oftentimes our lead MC here is referred to as Zion, at least that's how it's presented on the record, since on one track he sort of shouts out all three members, and he calls KG and Amp Live by their names, but he refers to himself as Zion opposed to Zumbi, which is also what the short documentary I saw did as well. So that's definitely something I'd love for someone in the comments to clarify a bit, if they have any further knowledge on the topic. For the purposes of the review, I'm just going to refer to this top-tier lyricist as Zumbi, because that's what most of the sources I found online refer to him as, and it just makes it a bit less confusing as to whether I'm referring to the group as a whole, or the singular MC. But really quick before I get into the actual record itself, I want to reiterate just how stacked this year was for hip-hop, because I know there's been multiple times in the past on the channel where I've professed my love for years like 1993, 94, or 96, but I'm almost positive I've never delved into how many personal favorites of mine came out in the year 2000, and just some of those classics outside of Mind Over Matter here included Ghostface Killah's Supreme Clientele, Common's Like Water for Chocolate, Eminem's The Marshall Mathers LP, Outkast's Stankonia, Deltron 3030's self-titled debut, Slum Village's Fantastic Volume 2, Quasimodo's The Unseen, Reflection Eternal's Train of Thought, Jurassic 5's Quality Control, Beanie Siegel's The Truth, Dead Prez's Let's Get Free, Dilated People's The Platform, Since I Left You by The Avalanches, HNIC by Prodigy, and Violent by Design by Jedi Mind Tricks. I love all of those LPs. In fact, I've discussed almost every one on the page before, and the ones I haven't are coming up later in this set, but I can pretty confidently say that if I was doing a ranking from worst to best, that Zion I's breakout debut here would be probably in the top 5, because it's truly a revolutionary piece of Bay Area rap music that almost defies categorization, with a grand sound and aesthetic that was so far ahead of its time that it still sounds incredibly fresh and adventurous when you put it on today. Even though the killer, spacey production lays down the foundation here, it's really Zumbi who gives these tracks a backbone, because the late legend had an extremely rich and easily identifiable voice that not only is super fun to listen to, but it perfectly accompanies the wide array of flows he employs. However, while this dude had such a dope voice that he could have gotten away with saying anything, instead he goes as far in the opposite direction as possible by creating these insanely sharp, polished, and witty verses that show an understanding for wordplay, rhyme schemes, and flow patterns far past what many MCs would ever achieve. Zumbi used this foundation to help build onto the late 90s/early 2000s West Coast underground scene, where alongside artists like Peanut Butter Wolf, Cali Agents, The A-Team, or Loot Pack, Zion I was attempting to broaden the horizons of what people thought of when they heard the term Bay Area hip hop, incorporating a bit more of an East Coast boom bap approach, of course with their own unique spin on it. The verse I want to share this time around is going to come from the track Elevation, which has a jazzy yet electronic, fast-paced beat that, like many moments here, utilizes these mechanical, hard-hitting snares that, at times, almost border on machine gunning territory. And I really appreciate how Zumbi approaches this speedy instrumental, showing off his far above average pen right from the jump, rapping, "The metaphorical, mathematical word science, lyrical compounds react plus minus, Earth's finest. I represented on Venus, girl gotta be pregnant, so now she got my fears. Good God Jesus, let me lace up my Adidas. My crew spread like AIDS, you just can't see us. Subterranean, memories keep on fading in, of when I was a king in Mediterranean. Landscapes greet time for beat breaks and chill while raindrops splatter on glass lakes. Reactions powerful poetic fractions. Let's grip and leave trails like acid trips. I diagnose if you need a larger dose. Flows that Pharaoh knows will leave you comatose. Like Nisa, the pyramid rhyme pleaser, I verbalize with the wide type demeanor and speak with archaic souls of the O. Time when our minds used to shine beautiful. I could go on forever about so many moments here, like the stellar instrumental track Metropolis, which sounds very reminiscent of the kind of music we would hear from Flying Lotus a decade later. But at the end of the day, this is just a dense, progressive, and high-quality underground hip-hop release, and it was even nominated for Independent Album of the Year by The Source, and honestly should have won. While all of the production here was handled in-house, we do get a small handful of features from contemporaries in the West Coast underground, like The Grouch, Nomadic, Eclipse 427, as well as both Rasco and Planet Asia of Cali Agents. It wasn't too easy with this album, but for my overall top 3 favorites, I ultimately narrowed it down to Venus, Rap Degrees, and Silly Putty. Then for my honorable mentions, I definitely still want to recommend tracks like Revolution, B-Boy Anthem, Critical, Mysterious Ways, Metropolis, Elevation, How Many, A Little Change, Inner Light, All the Way, and Inner Light Icy Remix. Thank you for watching my 400th video. Next up, we have another underground classic that dropped in the year 2000. So check in for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what moment inspires you the most off this true masterpiece. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.